This is a continuation of our graphing quadratic equations videos, and I just want to remind you what a generic form of a quadratic equation looks like. It is f of x equals plus or minus parentheses quantity x minus h parentheses squared plus k. And just as a reminder, the plus and minus in front either flips the graph upside down or keeps it right side up. So if what's in front of the parentheses, the squared term, is positive, your graph will be facing up like this. If it's negative, your graph will be facing upside down like this. All right, so your h value is going to shift your parabola, your parent function, left or right. Your k value is going to shift your parabola's parent function up or down. And then to find the vertex, which is the point of inflection, right? For downward facing parabola, it's the topmost point. For an upward facing parabola, it's the downmost point. Your vertex is h comma k. So we're going to be taking a look at equations, and we're going to be rewriting each equation so that it's in this form. We're going to be finding our h and k values. We're going to find the vertex. We're going to talk about the horizontal shift, the vertical shift, and then whether there's a reflection of the parent function or no reflection. All right, so the instructions here says, from the equation, state all transformations of the parent function f of x equals x squared. If there is a vertical or horizontal transformation, state by how much the graph is being moved. Then identify the vertex of the graph. All right, so I know that our basic graph must look like this. Plus or minus x minus h squared plus k. Well, I think the plus k here is in the correct form, but our h is not. So in this equation, what comes in front of our squared term? Here's our squared term. A positive, right? The implied form is positive because there's no negative. So how do I change the addition to a subtraction? Well, I change the sign of my constant 5. Instead of being a positive 5, I subtract a negative 5 plus 7. Okay, so now let's go ahead and find our values for h and k. H is going to be negative 5. K is going to be 7. All right, so I have a positive here. That tells me this is the first thing I'm going to do, no reflection across the x-axis, or ultimately I can say it opens up. My parabola is going to open up. Okay, since my h value is negative, the graph moves left by 5. Because k is positive, the graph moves up by 7. And then my vertex is a point. It's h comma k. H is negative 5 and k is positive 7. Okay, so hopefully you saw how that was done. We're going to go through probably like 6 examples, and you'll catch on if you didn't. All right, so for this one, h of x, we need to make sure that we have it in the right form. X minus h squared plus k. Okay, so this is my squared term, and this is my squared term here. Okay, so I have nothing that I'm subtracting from x before squaring it. So I am going to, in parentheses, x minus 0 squared. All right, so this is a negative, so instead of choosing the positive, I'm going to put the negative out in front. But now I'm supposed to be adding a k, but I'm really subtracting 10. So I'm going to change this to a plus -10. All right, this is my h value, this is my k value, and this is my negative, right? That tells me whether my graph opens up or down. So h is going to be 0 and k is -10. So my very first thing, my graph has a reflection. There's a reflection across the x-axis, which is the same thing as saying the graph opens down. Okay, number 2, since h is 0, there is no horizontal shift. Number 3, because k is negative, this moves down by 10. And then the last, my vertex, is h comma k. H is 0, k is -10. Okay, let's move on to the next example. Hopefully this is in the right form. G of x should equal plus or minus x minus h squared plus k. And it looks like everything's in place. So I just need to pick, is it going to be negative or positive? And very clearly here is a negative. So I picked the negative. So h equals 2 and k equals 13. And we have this negative. That negative tells us there is a reflection across or over the x-axis. My h value is positive, so this graph moves right by 2. K is positive, so this graph moves up by 13. And my vertex here is h comma k, 2 comma 13. So I want you to get used to thinking of h here as my lefty righty, k here as my uppy downy. Okay, let's do another example here. So my generic form looks like this. Okay, here's my squared term, and in my generic form, here's my squared term. I don't have anything being subtracted from x, so I know that I have x minus 0 because there's nothing being added or subtracted from x before I square it. The sign I'm going to choose is negative. And then I have my plus 2, which is my plus k. All right, so this is my lefty righty. This is my uppy downy. Okay, so this is h and this is k. H equals 0, k equals 2. And what does my negative tell me? My negative tells me I have a reflection. My graph is going to open down, reflection across the x-axis, or my graph opens down. Okay, my h value is 0, so I have no horizontal movement, so there's no horizontal shift. Okay, my k value is positive, which means the graph moves up by 2. And then the last thing is my vertex. My vertex is h comma k, 0 comma 2. All right, let's see, are we in the right form? Plus or minus x minus h squared plus k. All right, so I think we have our minuses that match up, so that looks good. I know this is a positive out in front. So we have a positive x minus 3 squared, but k is supposed to be added. So I'm going to add the negative because a negative and a positive make a negative, so that's congruent, that's equal. All right, so this is my left-right shift, this is my up-down shift, and I have a nice positive. So my h value, right, this h equals 3, my k value, this k equals negative 11. I have this plus in front, so that tells me I have no reflection across the x-axis, or the graph opens up. 2, my h value is positive, so this graph moves right by 3. My k value is negative, so my graph also moves down by 11. And then my vertex is h comma k, 3 comma negative 11. Okay, I believe this is the last example. Okay, so let's put this in the right form. H of x equals plus or minus x minus h squared plus k. All right, so this is not correct right here. I'm going to choose the negative here, negative. How am I going to fix this? I'm just going to subtract a negative because that's adding. Okay, we'll subtract a negative 9. Okay, this is being added, k is being added, so that looks good. This is my left-right movement. This is my up-down movement. H, you can see here, H is negative 9. K is 3. I have a negative. That tells me I do have a reflection across the x-axis, or the graph opens down. H is negative, so I'll be moving left. This graph moves left by 9. K is positive, so this graph also not just moves left, but it also moves up by 3. And then my vertex is h comma k, so negative 9 comma 3. All right, so that's how you should be doing your homework. Make sure that you select the right one. So if it says left/right, right? For this one, since it's moving left, I would circle left. Where it says by, I would put 9. If it says up/down by, I would put this one moves up, and it moves up by 3. Make sure you select the correct direction things are moving. All right, so next video we'll talk about axis of symmetry and stretch and compress factors.